Protocol already established. A wonderful morning to all of you. Permit me to veer you from the beautiful presentation by Dr. Auger on economics and arts and direct your attention to perhaps the most important sector of our economy, education, which produced the caliber of people we have here in this room, physically and online. As a caveat, this topic is big, and 5 minutes does not really allow for in-depth examination and report on research and innovation in education. I will shallowly scrape the surface, but if I go overboard, I beg your indulgence. If COVID-19 is the litmus test of the strengths of systems and structures, it has certainly stripped our education system naked, revealing through panoramic lens the inadequacies, inefficiencies, and misalignment to the ideals of the 21st century classroom. More glaring is the incontrovertible difficulties of transitioning to remote learning, which demands a device, first of all, internet connectivity, mastery of an online teaching platform and other teaching learning technologies, basic computer skills, and a superb ability to deliver quality and effective instruction, ensuring that no child is left behind. Number 4 and 9 of the projected 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. With the realities that present themselves in this pandemic, we ask, how far are we from these ideals? Were we kidding ourselves 8 months ago that we were making significant strides in these directions? The litany of tragedies brought on by COVID-19 to our education system questions the extent of reform we have undergone and innovation we needed to refine our education system. As a teacher, principal, education officer, I have perceived from the evidence presented in this pandemic that our schools have not changed much over time. The pressure transferred to students to now take greater ownership of their own learning. The stress upon teachers to find creative and innovative ways of teaching new concepts remotely. The fact that many were unaware of the vast amount of teaching learning resources available freely to them on the World Wide Web and the technologies to enhance the learning environment has exposed the weaknesses of our instructional practices. We are perhaps stuck with a model redolent of traditional methodologies and archaism. Not much evolution has happened in our practices to reflect current day advances in cognitive and behavioral science and educational psychology. More worrying is that the average classroom today is a mirror image of those of the 90s when I attended secondary school. I am certain those of the 1970s also bear striking resemblance. How much reconfigurations have classrooms undergone, accompanied with technological accoutrements that activate and engage students in the learning process? William Pollard warns that the arrogance of success is to think that what you did yesterday is sufficient for tomorrow. We cannot dismiss that the greatest transformation evident in modern day society is that technology has become the pen and paper of this age. Alvin Toffler explains it nicely in saying, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. Remote learning brought on by this pandemic has exposed the realities of how we educate our students and presents now an opportunity for us to do better. So, this is the reality that COVID exhumed. But flipped, there are great ideas and initiatives ongoing and some to be rolled out that we can tout and celebrate as innovation in education. Permit me to share a few. One, computer coding and robotics funded by USAID for secondary schools piloted a coding and robotics program. This did not only develop the problem and develop skills, in programming and building functional robots, but it also fostered problem-solving, creative, innovative skills as students were actively involved in identifying environmental issues and designing robots to address these. Number two, Pro Futuro Education, funded by OAS and the Pro Futuro Foundations of Spain. 12 primary schools on island stand to benefit from an implementation of technology in education initiative. This project is expected to promote access to quality education with emphasis on honing 4 important skills in students: critical thinking, creativity, communication, and collaboration. It is hoped that this project will empower teachers to bring innovation to the classrooms and prepare students adequately for the digital world. Equipment have been received by the schools. Presently, 2 teachers per primary school in St. Lucia, all schools included, are undergoing webinar training in teaching learning methodologies to deliver more effectively in the classroom. My District 8 will start tomorrow till Thursday. 3, e-books. Previously, 13 schools benefited from this initiative in the 3rd term of the last academic year. Presently, this is being rolled out in more schools. The beauty of this is not just the cost savings to parents not having to purchase textbooks, but the utility of a virtual lab for students to conduct experiments, negating costs of procurement of materials, and the ability of teachers to design additional content, such as open education resources for students, text, videos, PDF images, URL web links, and audio resources. 4, promotion of a digital academy at the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College, which enables increased access to education with the offerings of online courses. 5, Digital Leadership Education Initiative. We had teachers and students across 22 schools receiving skills training and exposure to C Delta, and I would like to throw in there Raspberry Pi and STEM, teaching, learning skills to be more effective in areas such as science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And 7, Smart Classroom Project. 5 schools are in the vanguard of educational reform and development with a Smart Classroom Project funded through the Taiwan ICDF project for ICT in education in St. Lucia. This project, when rolled out, will include collaborative teaching, twinning with a school in Taiwan in areas such as mathematics, foreign languages and sciences, an educational portal, and an online teaching platform. I must say a diverse range of teaching materials have already been received by the schools, and presently teachers of the pilot schools are undergoing digital education training with the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. So, as it can be noted, exciting things are happening in line with education, innovation in education, the pursuit of which is primarily to engage or enable students to attain their full potential in an educational environment which is more inclusive, equitable, and which leverages new methods for instruction and learning. It is regrettable that implementation of these has been halted by COVID. We hope to see a great change in the education landscape in the future. Our interest then, ladies and gentlemen, should be to measure innovation, monitor it systematically, and evaluate the extent to which these innovations are linked to better educational outcomes, improved students' well-being, bridging the achievement gap, improving teacher efficacy, to name a few. This would reciprocally help policymakers to better target interventions and resources and give feedback on whether education reforms do translate to actual change in educational practices as anticipated. The apparent pressure, distress, and possible depression experienced by teachers to unearth the most creative and innovative ways to teach students remotely shows that we seriously need to focus on pedagogical innovation. We should not be scared to become innovative because COVID has bargained alternative teaching methodologies to effectively introduce new content to students other than the chalk and talk approach. But being innovative, creative in the classroom should be interwoven in our educational practices, not just for the duration of COVID, but afterwards as well. Educators need to be more results-oriented. It is time that education governance demands serious accountability of teachers, principals, and education officers for the caliber of students they produce. Now, with regard to research, I know I have exhausted my 5 minutes a long time ago and loaned additional time from you. So I will endeavor to throttle on this point. Inarguably, research informs and guides policy. One would argue that a vast amount of research has already been conducted on the education system in St. Lucia, all of which would be contextually and culturally relevant as they have focused on an aspect of instruction, school operations, impact of educational policies, to name a few. For a degree in education, just imagine, a research paper is required at all levels, bachelor's, master's, doctoral. It suggests that every graduate teacher or educator in St. Lucia would have engaged in research. Not to mention nationals who reside overseas and non-nationals who have converged on our shores to research an aspect of education in St. Lucia. But the thought-provoking question is, how accessible are these research papers? Where are they stored? Do we even have an archive of research that has been done in St. Lucia? There is a growing body of theories which underscores the inextricable link between research and innovation. An aspect of education may investigate, for example, the impact of a particular teaching methodology on student learning. It is expected in these research papers, prescriptions for change or improvements should be made. This is where innovation is introduced. But who keeps stock that change is effectuated? I would like to recommend, just as Dr. Kito Lorenzen mentioned, the establishment of a research center in St. Lucia, one that will oversee research in many areas: education, applied sciences, sociology, anthropology, to name a few. Research papers, including the theses, dissertations, can be stored and accessible there. Exceptional researchers could be employed to conduct research in their area of specialization. There are great researchers in St. Lucia. Take myself, for example. I hold a Master of Science with distinction in Applied Linguistics and Second Language Acquisition with the University of Oxford, and the award for best research in that program in that year, a research of publishable quality. Have my knowledge and skills in research been tapped post-Oxford? Sadly, no. I have wilted. With a research center on environment that values research to inform policies or decisions like England, I am confident that this would ignite interest in and encourage research and innovation. Now, how can we ignite interest of young people in research and innovation during their formative years and beyond? Truth be told, research is included in the curriculum. Students as early as grade 2, grade 4 with MST, and grades 5 and 6 with CPA are expected to complete a research paper on SBA. Likewise, every subject at the CXC level, except the foreign languages, has an SBA which engages students in investigations. In these SBAs, students pursue solutions to problems by asking questions, designing plans, carrying out experimentations, creating artifacts, making inferences based on data collected, communicating findings. The tenet of project-based learning lies in real-life application of the research. The reward of early involvement of students in research is the nurturing of their critical thinking, problem-solving skills, awakening in them creativity, innovation, passion, ingenuity. Though these are the intentions, we hear the recurring lamentations of employers that secondary school graduates lack the level of critical thinking and other soft skills demanded for workplace competencies. This questions the teaching methodologies used and the extent to which we give students more agency in their learning. It calls us educators to return to the drawing board and architecture a better way of doing. I want to end by saying research and innovation evokes a renaissance of wisdom, a transformation from an intellectual exercise, research, to imagining practical education reform supported by actual execution of projects, initiative to derive a better way of doing innovation. The symbiosis between research and innovation is crucial. The powers above which institute rules and policies to govern education must steer us on the right path. I thank you.